my name's Chris Nicholas. I'm here with EDSS today. A common question that's been asked lately is, how do we apply this EVA-Wood shoe to a horse's foot during the casting process without using set screws? Set screws are screwing a shoe through the wood and then into the hoof wall to help stabilize the shoe so it doesn't twist during the casting process. So we're going to go over two ways of applying an EVA-Wood shoe without using set screws to help stabilize the shoe on the foot so that when we cast it, it doesn't move around. I'm going to just go over the products first that we're going to use today. We're going to use Arty Mud from Red Horse. We're going to use soft dental impression material. We're going to use 2-inch EcoCast. We're going to use an EVA-Wood. We're going to apply it to a practice composite foot today. We have some 3/4 inch screws. We're going to use a 2-inch wire wheel, a hoof buffer, impact drill. We're going to use a fast set glue to temporarily attach the EVA-Wood to the foot. And we're going to use hoof life for the glue during the casting process. Stretch wrap, bucket of water, rasp. These are the tools we're going to use today. Shoe placement during the casting process is really quite critical, and so it's nice to have a couple reference points that when we apply a shoe we have something to know that we haven't moved our shoe too far back or too far forward. So I'm going to show you a process of helping line up the shoe to the foot. We're going to go ahead and map the foot and draw a line across the widest part of the foot and also the widest part of our shoe. The way we find the widest part of our shoe is by laying a straight edge against our shoe and draw a line on both sides and connect the dots. Once we've done that, we can come over to a foot here. Once we have drawn our reference points, we can use these lines that we have drawn on the foot. Here's the line at the widest part of our foot and the line on the widest part of our shoe. We can connect these two lines on both sides, and this is going to be a guide to help us hold the shoe in the correct precision. We're going to use 2 screws for the moment, and we're going to drill them in at about a 45 angle into the shoe like this, and we're not going to push them in tight first. We're going to get them just close to the hoof wall and help us use these as a little bit of a clip to hold the shoe in place. One of the things I have found is trying to start this and the screw going where you want it to go can sometimes have a mind of its own. So doing a little bit of a drill hole first or a pilot hole can help guide the screw in a direction you want it to go. So I'm going to line I'm going to start with drilling straight down on the shoe to set the pilot hole. Then once I have my pilot hole, I'm going to shift my drill out to about a 45-degree angle. Go through the lever and go push away into the wood. Pilot hole, tilt your drill sideways. I'll now go ahead and just start my screws. So if this happens, it is not a problem to go ahead and during our foot prep for applying this shoe to put a little bit of a camphor on our foot around it, so it'll fill in with a little bit of glue during our casting process. So on this foot here, I'm going to put a camphor or a radius around the hoof wall and gather it up. And this process will also be done for gluing the shoe to the foot. Now our shoe slides back to where we want it. Our lines match up. And now you can see that our shoe doesn't want to move backwards or twist. We can add 2 more screws to really stabilize it. So at this point, we're going to slowly bring the screw down to the hoof wall and help lock it in. And we're going to do the same to the outside. At this point, that has locked our shoe to our foot by clamping it to the hoof wall and helping any twisting forces. Using 2 screws is normally enough. However, if you think the horse is uncomfortable and going to slap its foot down, I will use 4 screws to help stabilize it and help hold it in place. So we've added a screw, 2 screws at the back, so we have a total of 4. And I left the screw out just a little bit. So now I can there. Now I can gently tighten the screw down to the hook wall as well. All right. Okay. We're going to prepare the hoof wall for the casting material. Right now the foot is nice and smooth. It potentially have some dirt and oil on there. We want to clean it up so the glue can adhere to it. Your rasp, holding it at about a 45-degree angle, you can run it and rough up the hoof wall, and stopping within about 1 inch of the coronet band. Another tool that I like to use is a 2-inch wire wheel for cleaning it up. This works really well in the back of the foot, cleaning the periopal for the heels if you're needing to glue there. In this circumstance, we're not. And a hoof buffer is another great tool for cleaning the hoof wall. For this application, we're going to be using dental impression material to glue a dam so that we're not casting quite to the hoof wall in this area, so we're not prepping the back portion of the foot. Because we've cleaned up the hoof wall, we have removed our marks for the widest part of the foot, so we'll just put our reference marks back on. So we are ready to cast and go through the casting process in this application. For a clean professional look, these screws protrude out from the side of your shoe. You can use your hoof buffer or take the shoe off and grind these smooth so that it doesn't have as much protrusion during the casting process. So that, using the screws for the side was a technique for using screws to help position the shoe. We're now going to glue the shoe to the bottom of the foot as another way of securing the shoe for the casting process. One of the things to be aware of is when we're casting a shoe on, it adds thickness to our shoe. So if you want to have a shoe that has more leverage reduction, I'm going to prepare an extra chamfer or wedge into the shoe so the casting material can hook into it. I'm going to hold my shoe at a 45-degree angle to the grinder, and I'm going to try not to get too much into the EVA foam. I'm more going to be concentrating on tapering the plywood. So what I've done is increase the angle at more of a 45, so my casting material can now attach into this area of the shoe.
Turn it.
So when we're casting and we do not have the shoe anchored to the foot, it will pull the shoe different directions. So we're going to go ahead and glue this shoe to the sole of the foot. We're going to use a fast setting glue, hoof tight, and we're going to apply a rim around the shoe and a rim around the hoof wall. And I'm going to show you how I prepare the foot and the shoe for this process. There's oils in our fingers and dust, so we want to just clean up the surface on both the foot surface and the shoe surface so it's clean. You can use your rasp. You can see the difference between me rasping the leather on this side and then this side of what it looks like cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and use the grinder for the other side. So if you remember me putting a small radius into the hoof wall, I've also put a small radius into our shoe. Instead of just having two flat surfaces, having a little bit of an area for the glue to hook on this side and this side gives it a little bit more strength. If the horse were to quickly put its foot down, it's going to help anchor the shoe securely to the foot. So I'm going to just do this process, start to finish. We're going to start with Arty Mud, dim, glue, put glue on the hoof wall, and then cast. Right? Arty Mud is a great antibacterial. We start by putting it in the commissures and the central sulcus, or any area that you think that needs to have. It's an antifungal treatment. All right? You want enough dental impression material to fill the back portion of the foot, have enough to come out back to the back, as well as for our little wings. All right. This sets up pretty fast, so I'm going to go from heel to heel and put a little bit extra around our toe. Remember, we have our lines that we can line up our shoe. And at this moment, you can kind of just smear the glue around while it's still malleable. You have about 30 seconds. When it's hot, it takes a little longer when it's cold. So while this is setting up, I'm going to continue molding my dim. Right now I am molding the dim around the back of the heels and the heel bolts. So during the casting process, we're not locking in the heel or the back of the coronary band as the foot grows forward. Once this sets up, you can trim it down to whatever shape you would like it to be. If you don't have a bucket of water handy, you can tear these little score marks and fill this up with water, let it sit for 10 seconds, squeeze the water out and go ahead and apply it. We have a bucket of water handy here today. We're going to use an acrylic glue, today it's Hoof Life, and smear it around the bottom portion of the hoof wall from about the widest part of the foot to the other side. I'm not using a mixing tip today, and I'm going to do about 3.5 pumps. This particular glue has a little bit longer time for it to set up, so I'll go ahead and mix it, get it ready. The reason I like it like this is that I can use some before and after the casting process. So you know when you have a healthy casting material and that when it's soft and malleable, go ahead and dunk it in the water for about 10 seconds. And when it stops bubbling, you know it's pretty good. Don't squeeze all the water out because the water is part of the activating resin. I'm going to use about 2/3 of my glue. And I put some on the shoes, some on the wall. It doesn't have to be done perfect here. It's more about using your time efficiently. This will help the casting material bond really well to the hoof wall as well as the shoe. In this moment, I'm going to start with holding it back at the heel, and I don't pull it tight. I'm just going to start with half on the hoof wall and half on the shoe and do 2 wraps. You can see how my casting material has hooked into the shoe here. At this point, I'm going to start going about 1/4 inch increments at the toe, but I'm going to keep my casting material close to the bottom of the foot at the back. Today we're using 2-inch casting material. Comes in different widths, 3-inch and 4-inch as well if you're working on a bigger foot. As I get about 1 inch from the coronary band, I start with tapering my casting material back down. You do not have to use all the casting material if you feel like you have enough. Today we're going to go ahead and use all of it. As it gets near the end, I will use the last little bit of my glue right here to help secure my tab. As well as add a little bit of strength to the casting material in high wear areas, which would be at the toe. Once again, this doesn't have to be done and made super pretty. We're going to use some stretch wrap now. Thank you. Same process. Start at the heel, and you want to start going up over the heel bulb and over the toe. Now, if this were a horse, you could have put the foot down at any part of this process once your shoe was glued to the foot. The stretch wrap helps hold the moisture and the glue against the foot surface, and that is part of the bonding agent. If you don't use stretch wrap, it'll still set up, but it sometimes is a little bit more flexible. Using the stretch wrap helps the cast set up quickly and nice and strong. So this was for a horse that was able to hold up its foot for about 15 seconds tops. So I would do a little step, give it a break, give it a little step, give it a break. And I screwed a small clog upside down to the wood EVA shoe that I made. And I went ahead and did the casting process with the horse standing on the ground. Once you have let the material set up, the casting and the glue, it's just hard, it's set, right? So you can pull your stretch wrap off. Often my rasp is handy, so that is what I use to help me remove my stretch wrap. So some of the things we're looking for during this process is that our casting material has not covered up too much of the EVA foam. And you can see right here how my casting material a little bit has covered up the foam. So we can remove this portion of the casting material, but the majority is being locked in with the wedge, the little taper that we put into our shoe. Secondly, I've got a tiny bit high here close to my coronary band, and if that happens, this process, it's still pretty soft where you can cut it with your knife and make sure that as this foot grows forward that the casting material isn't going to pinch your coronary band or your heels. So our goal was to keep our casting material down below our EVA foam, so it had the most amount of flexibility when this is on the ground. There's just a small amount up here. Now if I think this horse is going to be pretty active, it's going to wear and break this away very quickly. If you have too much, go ahead and just use your knife and peel it back. And there's just a few layers here. There's going to maybe be a little bit more at the heel. At times you may want to leave it there. So some of the things that we're looking for our final result is you'll see that the casting material has a nice shine to it. That's where it's set up. We have still have the mechanics in our shoe. We haven't added extra material. In the back, you want the casting material not to be straight up and down like this, because when the foot grows forward, it has a tendency to pinch the back of the foot. So you want to be able to prepare your dental impression material in the contour of the heels, so as it grows down and forward, it has less pinching. Thank you for watching this video today. I hope these tips have been helpful for you. Please feel free to call EDSS for any other questions. Cheerio.